Welcome back. The Namibian Investment Promotion and Development Board plays a pivotal role in advancing Namibia's economic growth by promoting and facilitating investment from both foreign and domestic sources. An article in a local daily reported that rich foreigners are eyeing Namibia's farms and they want permanent residency to buy Namibian retirement farms. Well, the NIPDB responded to this, and now we gauge the Executive Director of Strategy and Branding at the NIPDB, Margareth Gustavo, for more insight on this. Margaret, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us here on the Daily Roundup. Margaret, good evening. Are you there?
Hold on, she's on mute. Did you sort it out? Okay.
Margareth Gustavo, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you so much.
Well, Margaret, just to start with, talk to us about how the NIPDB streamlines investment processes and enhances investor confidence in Namibia.
I think in terms of streamlining, so maybe just to go back on our mandate, and our mandate is really to promote and facilitate investments by foreign as well as Namibian investments and coordinate MSME activities across all the levels of the economy to contribute to economic development and job creation. So in order to do that, we know that the economy of Namibia was predominantly really focused on extracting the resources that came from into the coffers of government, predominantly came from our primary industries, which was mining specifically, and all our mining resources. And government took a decision early 2019, 2018, around when the high-level panel was put together. And they said, look, we need to diversify our economy if we want to be around in the few years that they are. And so one of the key levers is, if you look at GDP, for instance, GDP is calculated, government expenditure. Government has expensed a lot of money already to make sure that infrastructure is in its place. We've got great infrastructure as a country to the point where Namibia is got the best roads in Africa for the last 5 years consecutively. Consumer expenditure, when we have a bit of a high unemployment rate, and especially amongst the young people, it makes it difficult to have a high consumer expenditure. People don't have disposable income that they can spend because I don't have a job. And so if you look at that GDP formula, the only lever we had to pull as a country was to attract investments into the country. In order for us to attract investments, there's a couple of things that needs to happen. And one of them is really to make sure that the business climate is conducive to attract investors, for investors to come. You've got lots of options. I can go to Botswana, I can go to South Africa, I can go to many countries around us. And so Namibia needs to stand out in terms of our service delivery, and that our environment, our business environment, in other words, how easy is it to do business in Namibia, and what's the cost of doing business in Namibia in comparison to other countries who are offering similar products or services that we have. That we also have. And so in order to do that, then number two, so it's one, to take care of that, making sure Namibia is competitive. That means there are constraints in the system. One of our directors always says, it's like an old pipe, and this pipe has been clogged up with all sorts of old water, old sand, etc. And grass has grown all over this pipe. And you want to be able to, and this pipe is maybe the getting investors into the country. So the constraints in there is all the sand and all the debris that's collected in our pipes, in the pipes over years. So we have to take investors through these pipes and make sure that we clear up the system, the clogs in the system. In other words, these constraints that we have in our system, we need to clear these up to ensure a smooth business experience for investors in our country. And that's not only Namibian investors, but also international investors. And then what we do is also need to go and find those investors in different markets. We have a specific investment promotion strategy, and this strategy is really looking at, if these are our key priority sectors that we've identified to attract investments to, where do we find the countries that actually can offer these types of investors to Namibia? So that's really how we structure it.
I want to talk about this article that the board responded to that was in a local newspaper saying that rich foreigners are eyeing Namibian farms and that they want permanent residency. And in your response, one of the solutions you provided was to give these individuals the desert visa. Talk to us about this program, the desert visa program, and how it aims to attract high net worth individuals to the country and what economic benefit they would bring to the local community.
So first, I must say that the desert visa program is still a modality that's being put together. It does not have cabinet approval, as it were. So we're still putting the process together, but it's part of a tool that we use all over the world. It's something called golden visas. And golden visas basically target high net worth individuals and talented individuals who can contribute to economic growth of any country. So they would come with investments. They would also increase consumer spending in that country. So imagine if you got an Elon Musk coming to Namibia and he comes on holiday. The kind of person that he is, he would obviously spend a whole lot. He would probably come in his private jet, land at Osea Kotako, and then he needs to be flown to wherever he needs to go to make that happen. And if he finds Namibia a conducive place to invest in, which we believe we can get him to think that, he would directly invest into Namibia, invest into specific sectors that we would present to him. And so they also impart their skills and their knowledge, as well as many of them just do a lot of philanthropy. They invest into the communities of the country. And we've seen that working in countries like Qatar, countries like the UAE, where, the UAE has got 2 million inhabitants, real like Emirati that lives in the UAE. But the majority of the people that have developed that economy were investors that have come into that country, into that region, were people that came to work in that region. So they brought their talents, etc., into the region, and they grew their economy in that way. So the way we're putting this together is really similar, and it's really how do I leverage on skill sets that are out there. We know our country, we've got lots of educated people who finish school at varsity. But you need that opportunity to be able to work with somebody who's done that over the years, to grow that experience in order for you to actually, be fully versatile in the field that you've chosen. So that's really what golden visa programs are about. And it's another form of attracting investments. So you wouldn't only go to a company, but you would go to an individual. So, and also what you'll notice is that you've got a company, let's say, for example, an asset manager who works for a high net worth individual, and this high net worth individual has never heard about Namibia, but the asset manager who manages his assets has heard about Namibia. So now I need to get this philanthropist or this top business person that is known all over the world, high net worth individual, to know about Namibia, to come and invest in Namibia, because he's got options. And if his asset manager knows about Namibia, what a good way to actually get him to understand Namibia as well, see what the opportunities are in Namibia. Maybe another example would be...
I just have to interject there. Thank you so much. For the sake of time, I want to talk about the OSC, which is your one-stop center, which is another initiative that you've introduced. And how has this fared since its launch?
And it was launched in October, so we're supposed to have business facilitation services that happen there. You are supposed to have different OMAs, different offices, ministries, as well as agencies of government who provide services to business. So the likes of BIPA, the likes of NAMRA, the likes of the Ministry of Home Affairs, etc. They are having offices at the one-stop center, and they provide services to investors. So when investors come through the NIPDB, it's really a one-stop center for investments. And for investors, it's to facilitate investment into the country, to ensure that they have, remember the pipeline I was speaking about in the beginning, to ensure that that pipeline works well, that things are channeling through this pipeline and are making sure that Namibia is an easy place to do business, and it's also cost effective. In the past, people would come to Namibia and they would go from pillar to post, pushed everywhere to actually register or start a business or make an investment in the country. So we said, let's provide you with a one-stop place where you come, you register your company, there, and we then are connected. We then have a team that works there that are connected with the different owners, and then provide those services to our investors.
Just lastly, Margaret, what future economic changes do you foresee for Namibia as a result of these, investment initiatives?
I think the investment initiatives, as I said right in the beginning, you see the impact. So first, you see an investor coming into the country, he's interested in the country. And in order to turn that investor around, it takes about 2 years to do so. And once that investor is here, one, it's employment creation. You've got a lot of people that are employed in this place, and we're trying to make sure that as investors come into the country, that they really leverage the opportunities that they are amongst the people that are in the country in terms of employment. We also have a department that takes care of sort of linking investors with current capacity or human resources in our country. So we're working on that to ensure that when investors do come into the country and there are new sectors, not only are we saying, okay, fine, how do we get the skills into the country, but who are the people in the country that can easily do this work? So employment creation, you've got capital in the country. Once this company actually takes off, they pay taxes to the government, and therefore we have revenue, just increased revenue in our state coffers. And in that way, government is able to take care of services that they have to render in their ambit of responsibility.
Madam Gustavo, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, if you've only just joined us, you're watching the Daily Roundup with Nina. We're going to take a brief break.